terrible meaning good.
Goldenrod has been retired to Valhalla.
Why?
It was sounding funny. It was like not sounding good. We couldn't.
Oh, it
wasn't good.
It was crackling, wasn't it?
Yes, it was having issues.
I got that feedback.
It was like tinny, right? Is that what you said? It was tinny.
My word was tinny.
It's tinny.
Yeah.
So yes,
I can tell that. In my headphones.
So now I have a mic. I'm just like you guys now.
Do I need to put headphones on, or am I okay?
You don't have to. No.
Only losers.
I mean, you don't want to muss. You don't want to muss your hair. I mean, I get it.
Well,
get it.
Fairly.
But you are
difficult.
As you retire the golden EIB microphone. Yes. Do you refer to it as the golden EIB?
Sometimes,
microphone?
yes. Or goldenrod, or Goldfinger, or Gold Member.
Golden Boy.
It could be Golden Boy. So yeah,
that would be more neutral. Than EIB, golden EIB.
People. And when I did get it though, because I did. I grew up. In college, I first started listening to Rush and thought he was great, and I think he saved an entire medium. In AM radio, and at the end there, well, probably before the end, but he had some issues. But no, again, he's one of the greatest broadcasters who ever walked the face of the earth.
Besides the OxyContin, and besides his previously nicotine stained fingers.
And that's the thing. He still smokes cigars. Right? Cigars don't have nicotine.
No, they have a ton.
Well, then he still smokes cigars because he always used to say that. But every time you saw pictures of him playing golf, he always had a big old stogie. So, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, I'm sure, Bob. I'm just self-conscious sitting here in this chair because I don't think my profile does not work as well in this spot as Ashley, who is normally here.
Or Brittany.
Either one. I'm when you're kind of turned more this way. It's not so bad, but when you show, I'm like,
yes, this was referred to in chats earlier when found out you with the three of us as a sausage fest. So,
but truth be told, men and women alike prefer Ashley and Brittany over people like me.
Same. So David had a very interesting interview on Wednesday and wrote a very interesting story that ran Thursday morning as we record this Thursday afternoon, in which we had the the city council's highest-ranking senior alderman call for the mayor to resign. That's generally would be a news story in most cities, and we felt it was a news story.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Maybe some people who claim to be in the media business around here didn't think so, but hey, that's okay. We'll be happy to do it with our journalistic bona fides or bona fides.
It's a huge story, especially the things that he said.
Well,
that Farha said.
Yes.
I said in the green room that I don't always like what Farha, the alderman, says about us downtown folk, but I mostly agree with a lot of the things that he's talking about. So, David, can I say one thing about, in the article that you wrote, if anybody hasn't watched or read that article that you wrote, they should right now. Should stop what they're doing and read it.
I'll also link it to this podcast.
Link it.
Too.
So he said something like, okay, infrastructure. We're going to spend $6 million on infrastructure.
Right.
And then it kind of begged the question, what are we going to get for $6 million? So a number of years ago, and I'm quoting the article directly, that you can get a street done for $75,000 to $150,000. And so now we know.
Well, no, I believe the price range he put it in was about $150,000, $175,000.
Oh, is that what it is?
Back then, he didn't. He had a fairly wide window. It was 15 years ago. You could do a street for $175,000. Now he's saying that it's going to cost you $750,000 to $1.2 million. And what's up with that? Of all the things that he brought up, that was probably the one that I went, wait a second. Everything costs more. Yep. You can't tell me that anybody is doing business with the same cost that they were doing it 5 or 15 years ago. So, have I looked at what is needed to repair a street, to know what goes into it? No, I haven't. But to say that let's just make it simple. To go from $200,000 to $750,000, that's a pretty big jump. But I don't know, how long ago was it that you could do a street for $200,000? Plus, I think every street that the city is doing aren't they basically putting in all new? They're putting in all the
sewer
and everything's being replaced. So everything's going to cost exponentially more because of that as well, because they know it needs to be done. So while we've torn up this street, let's just put all that stuff in new as well. So that, I mean, I know you're not getting as many streets done for the amount of money that you're spending, but I think that's without sitting down and talking to somebody who can show me the price breakdown, that didn't surprise me that much.
$6 million was the number that kind of came out in the budget, right?
That's what he said.
For infrastructure. And so back to Farha's point, how much street can you get done for $6 million these days? Considering what we know about Quincy Street. So Broadway right now, not impressive.
Well, I mean, I think there's a difference between.
But that's a state. That's a state.
In your fancy schmancy promenade getting in that $6 million?
It's like $15 million now. I think the price keeps on going up.
Lord.
To your point. So, well, keep that thought.
Okay, I think the promenade's great. I was just poking fun at him.
No, you should. You should. Because a well-adjusted man can poke fun at himself.
Here.
Okay, so if the promenade's $4.4 million, granted, there's massive infrastructure, water lines being relayed, and half of that came from the feds down to the state, back down to us that we applied for a grant. But it doesn't matter. A project that costs $4.4 million or a roundabout that costs $4 million, and to Farha's point, we've got $6 million in the budget for infrastructure. Nothing. I mean, that doesn't do anything, right?
Doesn't sound like a lot.
I remember the last time I saw a list of streets that needed to be done. I want to say I thought I saw there were a list of about 10 streets. Maybe a block or city. Without going down a different road, you were talking about Broadway not being an impressive. I'm like, okay, now there's roads that, it'd be nice if you could redo them. And then there's roads that you go, oh my gosh, this really needs to be redone. I know for me, yes, it's part of my work drive in here, but Hampshire from 10th to about 6th is, I haven't seen a road worse than that around town. I mean,
from 10th to 8th is bad.
10th to 8th is bad. 8th to 6th and 10th to 8th is on the city's list for I think for next year. But keep on going, sister. I mean, because it's terrible from, and then basically I kind of, at 6th I'm kind of done. I'm here at our offices.
Yeah.
But again, without talking to somebody, without talking to those companies that build those roads, I just thought Farha's comments were, there needed to be a little bit more meat to it. He just sort of threw out some generalities without, well, it used to cost $175,000. How long ago? What did it used to cost? $175,000. I don't know. I don't know the time reference that he was able to put there.
I was able to listen while David was interviewing Alderman Farha, and all I could think of the entire time I was listening was Frank Costanza. Airing the grievances. I got problems with you people. It was just like, wow.
Well, I mean, really, to be honest, I mean, and Alderman Farha would I think would confirm this. We had learned earlier in the morning that Alderman Farha had resigned from the committees that he serves as chairman for.
All of them.
And your eyes lit up. It was like, oh, wow. Well, we just had this budget no vote, and now Farha says, I don't want to be on these committees. I probably should call him and say, hey, what are you thinking? And so I recorded the interview at my desk, and as we're going along, my desk is over there, Bob's desk is over here, and I'm going along, and I'm looking over at Bob, and he is just like, wow.
David's like,
Mike just kind of, we got on a roller coaster, and we went all over the place. I mean, he was mad. He's not happy with the budget. I think he's tired of the managerial style of the mayor, and he decided to be the first person to publicly come out and say, I'm done.
He's really angry about the leadership from his perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think the roads, you know, you want to start going through the nickels and dimes it's going to cost to do that, you can. I think what he was just more upset, and he reiterated some of the things that I got from Monday's meeting when, you know, I walked in there and I hadn't heard anybody say anything negative about the budget. I didn't anticipate there to be any problems. And then when they started and any discussion, crickets. Okay, let's vote. Then it was 7-6 against. The mayor read his proclamation, I guess, for the lack of a better way of saying it, in which he sort of touted all of the good things that were in the budget. You want to discuss this? Crickets. And so finally, after it was over, and I cornered 2 aldermen afterwards, and I'm like, what's going on? And they said, communication. He doesn't talk to us. They feel like this is being jammed down their throats.
You know,
whether that's true or not, I don't know. But Farha backed what they had to say as well. He was in their corner, the 2 aldermen.
But there was, again, okay, so a budget has mostly, there's 3 readings. So they've had the readings. They've been having the readings over the week. They've been going over different departments, and the department heads have been coming up and talking, and the aldermen have been asking some questions and talking, but the discussion's been pretty benign. So you get all the way down here to the finish line where this budget has to be passed by the close of business on April 30th or whatever it is, before May 1st. And you don't get a vote, and you have to have a budget. So you've got this little bit of brinksmanship here, and it's like, well, that's all well and good, but there was if the alderman really wanted to put together a constructive political strategy for this, if your problem is, let's just say the police contract, for example, look,
and that's part of it. They've said that.
We haven't had a police contract for 2 years. If you don't get this police contract done, and this should have been done probably March.
Other people who would say that they know any insight.
If you don't have this done, we're not passing your budget. That puts the onus on the mayor. So then when it comes down to this game of brinksmanship, and they're saying, do we have a contract? And he says no, then it's on him. But this way, it's kind of on them. They still have to pass this thing, and they cannot be happy with whatever they want.
And I kind of agree. I kind of agree with you on that. They've had a chance to have the hammer, and now really they don't. So if you don't pass the budget, well, you have to pass the budget. So you only have this window. So if your grievance is, we don't like the way the city is being operated, this seems like a strange time to draw the line in the sand and say, this is it right here. Now's the time we're going to bring it up.
Do you think that during these readings, as Farha says what he says, do you think it's because behind closed doors people are finally getting close to the end, and people are huffing and puffing, but nobody's saying anything? No, everyone's afraid. So the question is, Farha's the first person, the only person to say anything?
Really, the first person. He's the first person to say something so direct about the mayor
publicly.
Plenty
of people grouse about the guy behind closed doors,
right.
and to me, at a
Greg
bar
Fletcher,
or something.
And the 7 aldermen who voted against the budget on Monday night, I talked to 2 of them, Greg Fletcher and Richie Reese, and their complaint was just, he doesn't talk to us. How are we going to pay for this police investigation? How are we going to pay for where do we stand on the police contract? That's not, I want the mayor to be fired. That's just, I'm upset with that particular part of the budget. So as we tape this, as we record this on Thursday afternoon, there's a big meeting Thursday night. What are we going to do with the budget? We're going to sit down and start talking about it. And I think it'll be fascinating to watch. Do the no, are the 7 no's still no's? You've still got the 6 yeses. I'm not sure John Mast, who is basically out as the 5th Ward alderman, will he even be there? Because I know he told somebody with city administration on Monday, there's my iPad, there's my city here. You've got everything. I'm done.
Well, he's not, because they have the sine die meetings on Monday. So he actually technically does have one more meeting. So he's not done. And
but they've also come to this.
But they've also got don't they also have an alderman who's on maternity leave?
No, she's back.
Oh, Brianna's back. Okay.
So that was her
so
first
who is
meeting.
the missing alderman then?
Dave Bauer.
Oh, okay.
And if you look at the aldermen who voted against the measure, most of them were what I would say the old veterans: Sasson, Rhine, Farha, Bergman, guys who kind of know how the city has been operated in the past, and they don't like how it's being operated now. But again, will they stand up on Thursday night?
Is Maston a yes or a no?
Mast is a yes. He voted in favor of it.
Yeah, he'll be a yes.
No, well, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? My guess is yes. He's a yes.
Yeah.
What I would say, the younger crowd, Ben Uzelac, Kelly Mays, Brianna Rivera, all voted for it, and they're in favor of it. But they weren't around when what I was told was that the mayor used to basically say, hey, Third Ward Alderman, let's go have some lunch. Let's talk about the budget. Let's talk about what do you see, what do you like, what do you want, what don't you like. You be involved in the process.
Yeah.
Apparently, according to all these other aldermen, it's not happening.
Okay. Well, that's also a throwback to the Gary Sparks days, too, when Gary Sparks was the Director of Administrative Services and knew how to have the two alderman lunch where there wasn't a quorum and he could sit down and say, what do you guys want? What did? Yeah, that's true.
And you didn't have, basically, at that time, they knew what the votes were going to be almost up and down the line. They always knew what the vote was going to to be.
I mean, even when John...
You have no idea. Literally, almost any type of vote right now, you have no idea.
Even when John Spring, as his tenure continued and the Democrats continued to lose seat on the council, you know, he was still able to get the budget done.
Yeah.
He was still able to work with I mean, they didn't agree on a lot of things a lot of times, but when it came to budget time, you know, the Spring administration worked with them to get that sort of thing done. And I don't recall any of that kind of stuff in the Moore administration, although apparently Farha had some issues there too.
He had
a lot of issues.
Let's put it this way. He had a lot of issues,
with you people.
I didn't use it in the story, but he was basically, not only was he not complimentary of Mike Troup, he wasn't complimentary of Kyle Moore. You know, like I said, Bob heard it. I mean, he had a lot of things that he wanted to talk about and kind of just get off his chest. And I actually had lunch that I was supposed to go to at 11:45, and at 11:38, I'm looking at my phone and I'm going, I'm not going to quite make it to lunch on time. But it was like, okay, I got to break this off. I mean, because he was rolling, and I mean, I'd gotten what I needed, but I think Mike was willing to talk for quite some time. He's very upset. I mean, I just, you know. When you post this on our website tomorrow morning, the answer to this question will already have been answered.
Right.
But as we sit here now, it's who's going to get in line behind Farha and say, yeah, you're doing it wrong, Mayor. Mike, I'm all behind you, Mr. Farha.
Or are they just going to thrash him at the meeting and then end up voting for it?
And it'll be 15 minutes and they just vote for the budget and move on, and it was just a little mini cloud burst and we move on.
Is Troup reading the Muddy River News article and doing damage control behind?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you know, when people ask me about Mike Troup, I always say he returns my phone calls. He answers every question I give him. You know, I'm not here to. Well, I mean, I guess I am in some way, but for the most part, I don't. You know, I just report how he manages the city.
Right.
I don't opine about how he manages the city. And he responds to every question I have, every meeting I've ever set up. He's been polite to me.
Yeah, because you're doing real journalism. That's
I don't know about that, but I've had no problems with Mike Troup.
I mean,
He's never snapped at me. I've never snapped at him. We have a good working relationship, and I've written things about him that
have been critical.
And I've written, very complimentary.
Columns
He's been great.
And he understands that part of the job is I have to deal with the media, so I will deal with them straightforward. And this is what, we ask him a question, he answers it. I mean, he really has. I mean, and there's been times where we have gone where people have said, well, the mayor said so-and-so, like in third hand. It's like, oh, we need to check with the mayor on this. So we call him, he goes, oh, yeah, or oh, no. So he's been, again, really responsive when we need something from him. We've, interviewed him several times here. But, the thing is, though, his constituency that he, aside from just the city, the constituency that he has are those 14 people, and he needs to get 8 people to agree with him.
When I was meeting with one of the aldermen, I actually saw him at dinner last night. I went to Kelly's and ran into one, and he brought up a really interesting thing that I think not everybody always thinks about. He had a flow chart of the city of Quincy that is put out by the city of Quincy. And at the top of the flow chart, it says 14 aldermen. And underneath that, it says mayor. And I thought that was really, it really simplifies things. The mayor really isn't in charge. The 14 aldermen are in charge. And I'm just curious tonight if they're going to come out and say, okay, that's enough. We don't like how you're doing this, and we're going to show you how to do it. I mean, this meeting could go 100 different ways tonight.
Well, I can't wait to see the results of that meeting. So, what time's the meeting?
7.
7. So, if you're listening to this, it was 7 p.m. last night, and it'll be I can't wait to see what happens. What do you think generally about cities? And kind of speaking of like cities and city government, have you seen what's been happening in other cities? Have you taken note of that Chicago mayor? And I know this isn't local, but I'm kind of tying into. I think that new Chicago mayor is kind of something else.
When you say something else, define that.
Yeah, so something else meaning I think Chicago got rid of. I'm not saying we're getting rid of our mayor here. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that the mayor from Chicago, the Lori Lightfoot, I think was the mayor's name.
Yes.
And that mayor's gone because Chicago didn't like something about that mayor. Maybe one of them was maybe she wasn't standing up to crime. Maybe she was too left even for the city of Chicago. And then enter in the new mayor who is way worse.
More left. He's more left than Lori.
More left. I mean, he is. Yeah. He's more left. He's pretty much, in so many words, I'm paraphrasing. So when people go and rob a Walmart or go destroy the Mag Mile downtown, he'll say things like, you got to be a little bit more understanding of these people. So, I think what's happening in city government all over the place. So tying back into Farha. So we have an alderman who's looking around at his own city government and thinking, do not like this. And so it'll be really interesting again to see who falls behind.
Yeah.
Or maybe starts leading from the front. Because I think Farha, I've had my own problems with Farha. Just not
I think
with him
anybody who's ever dealt with him. Yeah.
I
he's
like him.
Very opinionated.
Yeah, I've got no problem talking with him.
Yes.
And I don't talk to him hardly. Very, very rarely. I just don't have a problem with him personally. I don't have a problem with anybody on the city council personally, but sometimes city council members, aldermen, older persons will do and say things that I'm just like, geez, no. Like we had an alderman during COVID that said that he wanted to put up this fascist thing and start,
taking people's water away from them.
Taking people's water away from.
And he won re-election. So
yeah.
See,
so
so there you go. But
I think that's Mike Farha is bombastic. That's the word that comes to my mind. You like that word?
That's a good one.
I mean, you just never know. When the mayor at the end of a meeting starts, Mr. Alderman, do you have anything to say before we wrap it up? And he goes around the horseshoe there, and he gets the mic, and there are days he goes, nope, I'm good. And there are days he starts quoting 18th century literature, or you just don't know.
Something I would do.
Yeah.
But, a few city council meetings ago, Farha, during new business, is there any new business? He goes, yeah, I need like 6 or 7 laptops just for like random people. Can we pull that out of the food and bev fund? Did you hear him say that?
No.
He said that.
What was that?
Everybody in the room. Oh yeah. Oh, he said it.
I don't remember.
I was in the room, and everybody looked at it. It was a packed room. You were there, actually. It was the day I gave that speech about the promenade. Josh Craig gave the speech. You were there covering it.
There's been a lot of those meetings.
You may have excused yourself the last 15 seconds of the meeting, which would make sense.
Sure.
But yeah, during that meeting, during new business, he goes, I need laptops, so we're going to pull it out of the food and bev. And he did it. I mean, Brett was in there, so, it's probably aimed at Brett.
I don't know. He was also talking about a certain person in the thing too. I don't know who that was either in his rant, in Farha's rant.
Oh, don't go down that road.
Oh,
there are lots of things, and I didn't use quite a bit of it because it really wasn't germane to what we were talking about. But again, Mike it was open mic night, and he just rolled, and I hope that, I haven't talked to him since the story appeared on our website. I hope he looks at it and goes, yeah, that's pretty much,
Well, it was.
that's pretty much what I said. I mean, it was what he said because I haven't recorded, but I hope he's happy with my reflection, my recollection of what was said that night. Tonight's going to be a very interesting step as to I may be totally overblowing this, but the next 2 years of the Troup administration, tonight may be a really big step as to how that's going to go.
Who knows? Maybe the mayor's going to go, yep, he's right, I'm out. Probably not. Probably not.
But I think your point was great in regard to, I just think that the aldermen, they sort of shoehorned themselves into a corner.
Totally.
It's like they want something to happen, but they don't have, they can't hold anything over his head right now except the passage of the budget.
There was no political strategy to any of this. This is all just no. It's the old Bud Camp strategy. No. There was no political strategy. There was no, hey, if we want to make this happen, we need to do this, and this is how we can really hold his feet to the fire and put the onus on him.
Sounding like someone who might have been a political
run
strategist
a campaign
once.
or two. So, so I just look at that and it's like, why? It was, again, to me, it was like, I thought of this like a few weeks ago when they were having issues. I'm like, well, if you wanted to do it, the hammer, not the hammer of justice, the hammer of budget is coming up. You have that hammer to say.
You know what? I mean, Farha definitely, and I'm not even trying to take sides with this comment, but he's definitely saying things that other people in that council think. For sure.
Oh, well, and he had the stones to do it.
He's a leader saying it first.
Yeah.
So now we'll see how the meeting goes.
Right. And I also think that, he's saying that the feedback that he's getting from his constituents, the feedback that he's getting from the people on the streets is, I don't like what he's doing. I mean, he made the comment, he's not popular. Not that popularity is what you should be worried about, because then he also went on to say, I don't give up about what everybody thinks about me either. But he's saying, I'm getting feedback from the populace of the city, and they don't like him.
Man,
is that true?
They're going to name a tree after him in Washington Park someday.
About who? After who? Which one, Mike?
Farha.
Which Mike?
Farha.
Let me ask you, the two of you, this. The fact that this is a Republican-dominated council, and this is a Republican mayor who's being chastised by the leading Republican alderman, and one of the aldermen, the fact is, of the 7 no votes, Richie Reese was a Democrat, and I don't think any other.
Patty Maples didn't vote against it?
Patty Maples voted against it, yeah.
I thought she did.
That's right. What is that? Is there anything that can be read into that as in the future of the Republican Party?
Our local party politics are so fractured in both parties because you've got I wrote about this months ago, the Tea Party faction, lack of a better term, more conservative faction. Then you've got the more business, more moderate, the Tea Party people will call them the rhinos. Then you've got the old school Schultz Democrats, I guess you could call them. And then you've got the wokesters. So you've got these four factions. I mean, you had the vice chair of the Democratic Party run against a writing campaign against an incumbent alderman. So what the hell there? And now you've got this on the council where a Republican mayor with a heavily Republican advantage on the council can't get this done. So our local party politics, and I ran into both Kate Daniels and Dave Backel during when they were doing the count for the 7th Ward race. And, they were cordial and everything. I talked to both of them, and it was fine. But you could tell Dave was just, when there were people who were there, because it was a pretty good group of the more conservatives showed up, and, Dave's not their favorite person sometimes, and there was some bristling.
You already saw the recount.
Yeah,
for heaven's sake, stop it.
No, I mean, the votes were counted. So, and again, it was an give kudos to Ryan Niekamp because it was an incredibly transparent process. I was asked to, where do you want to go? What do you want to see? Well, let's see anything. And that's all I asked.
Yeah.
Unlike the Tim Bleefnick motions, I can see a lot of them.
Well, we can go down that road too. But I sort of throw that out there because I just found it interesting that after the meeting was over and I found Richie Reese and Fletcher standing outside the chambers, and I asked them the same question, and they almost echoed each other's words about the lack of communication from the mayor's office. And it just made me do we need D's and R's to run city council?
Many communities in Illinois have nonpartisan municipal elections.
I mean, could you imagine the idea of trying to do that?
I think we're going down that road. I really do. I could see that now. A lot of old school Republicans are like, Jesus, we didn't have the mayor's office for 30 years, and now they're talking about this nonpartisan thing. And, former Mayor John Spring, even when he was in power as a mayor, is like, I think we should have nonpartisan elections here. But then, that just allows the people who want to scream rhino or woke even more. Oh, he's really so-and-so. But I mean, Springfield, no. Peoria, no. Chicago, no. They are not partisan elections. So again, and the old adage was there's no Republican Democrat way to fix a pothole. Just get the pothole fixed.
Yeah, right. There's no different, there's
and it's
no
funny
Democratic way to
because
pick up my trash.
It used to be, I remember when Peggy Krim ran for treasurer, and she was going door to door, and I had this conversation with her and her husband, Donnie, our friends, and someone asked her about abortion. And this was 20 years ago when she first ran for treasurer? And she goes, well, I don't think I'm ever going to have to deal with that, and I don't really think the Quincy City Council's ever have to deal with it. You know what? We may be approaching a point where there might be an abortion vote in Adams County or the Quincy City Council the way politics are. When you look nationally and you look at all these other cities and counties and states who are doing their own individual things to try to either protect the right to choose or to eliminate it, I think the day could come where the Quincy City Council is going to have to cast a vote on abortion.
I do think
I was not prepared for this discussion to go down that road.
I wasn't either, but you may have a point. Well, you do have a point, and you may be right. The thing about the city council member that just won re-election that was calling to possibly take people's water away, you want to know if someone has a D after their name, the chances of electing somebody, there is a transparent thing. I mean,
right.
So what you're talking about is there's a kind of a bipartisan effort, to stay on the same page, or this idea of Reese and Fletcher echoing each other, two different, very different people coming together in a bipartisan effort to say the same thing. But there's some pros and cons to putting the R's and D's after people's names just because they're labels that kind of can denote
But it's
how somebody votes.
It's funny because, you would, when we were talking about the whole classification earlier, Richie Reese is your classic Schultz Democrat.
Sure.
And some people would think that Uzelak would be your more lefty woke Democrat, but apparently not, because an even farther left Democrat ran against him. So Ben Uzelak wasn't liberal enough for certain members of his own party. And then, of course, Jack Holschlag would be the four of the five Democrats on the city council are really more conservative Democrats. Mm-hmm. Ben is the only one who probably leans a little more left than all of them. But Ben and Jack work well together.
Oh, absolutely.
Ben helped Jack, helped with his campaign a lot. The old school Democrats, the Jeff Jansons of the world, were also helping in Ben's campaign. So, I mean, he had a real Democratic Party effort behind him to retain that seat. So, they did come together in that regard. But again, I guess Ben, now that he is, getting ready to be a 2-term city councilman, I guess he's maybe too establishment for even some of the more liberal members of his own party. God help us.
Because Ben has the ability to work with conservatives, supposedly.
Aside from the dumb remark he made about the shutting off the water, I haven't seen anything about him that has been... everything he's really been. But I know some people complain about him not returning phone calls. But people were complaining about a lot of aldermen who don't return phone calls. So I don't think he is alone in that. So
Right. Yeah.
Well, this was fun. Do you have anything else to talk about before you go to your happy dappy city council meeting?
Like I said, I just think this is going to be. This could be fascinating. It could be 15 minutes and I'm out. I just don't know. I wish I could predict.
I know Frankie would like to talk about President Biden announcing his reelect, but we can save that for another day.
Yeah, we'll save it.
All right. Anyway, David, thanks for sitting in, and I'm sure one of the ladies or somebody will be back next week, and we appreciate...
You're sort of dismissing Ashley. I think she's a very integral part of it.
I'm not saying she's not.
Well, you just sort of said, well, we'll have one of them back.
I don't know what Ashley's schedule is. She's busy. She's jet-setting around the country in her other job that does pay a little better than we do. So, she might have other stuff to do, but we'll welcome her back as well. So, anyway, thanks, guys, for pitching in. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks. Bye.